Hello everyone, welcome to EduTap. My name is Tanushree and I welcome you all to the second lecture of our series Agriculture through MCQs. So before wasting any further time, let's get started. The topic for today's class is Principles of Agronomy Part 1. So this chapter, Principles of Agronomy, we are going to cover it in two parts and today we are going to discuss the first part. Now before I start with the MCQs, first of all here, I would like to pause for a second and I would like to explain you what is meant by the term agronomy. See students, agronomy is basically a branch of agriculture which deals with the crop and soil management. In agriculture, what happens is it is not that there is a field and you randomly go there and you start sowing the crops and you will get the yield, right? It is not there. To ensure that you get the best out of your field, to get the best yield and to get the best profit out of your field, it is important that you ensure that the soil is proper, the crops which you have chosen, right, is well suited for the environment, it is well suited for the kind of soil that you have in your field. So all these things, they have to be managed previously so as to ensure that our yield is at the optimum level, at the best of its capacity, right? So all these things, all these areas, they are dealt with in the branch of agronomy, right? First of all, okay, so before moving ahead, one more thing that I would like to tell you, that in one of the previous year questions, they have asked about the term market, the origin of such terms. So in that light, it becomes important for us to have a look at terminologies and their origin, at least the most important terminologies. So as far as the agronomy is concerned, it is derived from the term, it is derived from an Greek term, agros, which means field, and nomi, which means management, right? And it is basically a branch of agriculture which deals with the crop and the field management, right? So, after having discussed the definition and the meaning of the term agronomy, now let's move ahead to the questions part. So the first question that we have here is, which of the following processes involve breaking, loosening the soil and turning it over for uprooting weeds and aerating the soil, right? So as I have told you in the previous video also, just pause for a second and think of the answer, okay? So the answer for this question is option number B, plowing. As I have told you in the previous lecture also, we are going to discuss not just the answers but also other options as well, right? See students, in the agronomy, when we go for the farm management, the first thing that we have to do is to prepare our soil, right? Because whatever we are going to sow, the base material is always going to be the soil. So for in the soil, what we have to do, we have to do a lot of steps are included to properly manage the soil, to properly prepare the soil. And the first step that we have, it is the plowing. In the plowing, what we do is we essentially see why we do the plowing. Let me answer that first. If you have grown one crop previously, so if this is our field and here previously rice was grown, right? So we have just harvested the rice and now we want to sow the other crop. Just think of it in this manner, that because the rice was already growing in this land, there must have been a lot of irrigation cycles, and those irrigation cycles, they have compacted the soil, right? The soil becomes compact because of continuous irrigation, right? Now to ensure that the soil is well aerated, we undertake the process of plowing. In the plowing, what we do is we first cut the soil and then we turn it upside down. So if this is the suppose this is the slice of the land, and here suppose certain weeds started growing in this manner. So when we are going to do the plowing, we will turn this slice upside down so that the root part, it comes up, the weed, it gets uprooted, the root part will come up, and this stem and the leaf part, it will go down. So we will turn the soil upside down in the plowing part, right? So that is the process of plowing, and that is the reason why we do plowing, so as to ensure that our soil, it is well aerated, to break the compaction of the soil, right? After plowing, what we do is the second practice that we undertake, it is of the leveling. See, when we do the plowing, our field, it will have a structure something like this. Because of this turning upside down of the soil, our field will have structures like this. Now if our land is not evenly distributed, if our land is not flat, then what will happen when we are supplying irrigation to the field? The water, it will lodge in certain areas, right? Now, to prevent this water lodging, we have to make sure that our land, it is leveled, right? And it is evenly distributed. To do this function, we carry out the practice of leveling. Here a leveler will be used. Let me just show it to you. As you can see in this picture, a leveler will be used to level this entire land, because of the plowing, our land was looking something like this. As you can see here in this picture, there are furrows which have been created, right? So as to make sure that this land is evenly distributed, we carry out the leveling process in this manner, where a leveler will be used, right? So as to evenly distribute the entire earth or the entire soil. After this, the third process that we do is manuring. Now, in the manuring, what we essentially do is we have to ensure that our soil, it is rich in the nutritions also. So we provide soil with the nutrition to make sure that whatever nutritions have been depleted because of the previous season in which we have grown certain crops, so as to replenish the soil with those nutritions, we do the activity of manuring. Okay, now there is a last term which is left, and it is tillage. Now, a lot of students, they got confused between tillage and plowing, because these terms, they both sound similar and they seem very similar to each other, because tillage also includes mechanical manipulation of the soil. However, you have to remember this, that as far as plowing and tillage is concerned, the basic difference is in their aim, in their scope, how many activities are involved in that. Plowing is just a subset of the bigger tillage part. So if this is the entire tillage part, plowing is just one part of it, right? Or plowing is just a smaller part of the tillage activity, because in plowing we are doing just to make sure that the soil is not compacted, soil is well aerated, and to uproot the weeds. These are just the aim of plowing. But as far as the tillage is concerned, we make sure we carry out tillage to make sure that the soil is conserved, the water is conserved, soil erosion is prevented, right? So the reason for tillage, it is much more as compared to the plowing. Plowing is limited only to pre-cultivation, right? Before we cultivate before we sow the crop, or before we cultivate the crop, we carry out the plowing part. But tillage, it is not limited only to the pre-cultivation part. There is preparatory tillage, then there is after cultivation tillage also, right? So tillage, its operations are not limited to just one part of the entire crop cycle, and neither the operations are limited. So as far as the tillage is concerned, its scope is very wide. The number of activities which are covered in the tillage, they are also that is also very large. And moreover, the aim, it is not limited only to aerating part or to break the compaction. However, it has a bigger aim of soil conservation, to prevent the soil moisture, and to maintain an optimum soil temperature, right? So that is why tillage and plowing are different from each other. I hope this is clear to you. Now let's move ahead to the next question. The next question says that an open trench left in between two adjacent strips of land after finishing plowing is called what? So the correct answer here is option number A, dead furrow, right? Now, we have studied about plowing, what plowing actually is. And if you see here in this picture, you will get an idea what plowing actually looks like, right? So this was the slice of land initially, and this have been turned upside down. So this part, this used to be the downward side of the soil. Now it have come up on the upside, right? So that is essentially what we do in plowing. Now there are certain terminologies related to the plowing which you have to know. The first is the furrow. See, furrow is the trench which is formed by the implement, right? So after plowing, you will get structure something like this. So these are the furrows, right? Then you have furrow slice, right? The mass of the soil which is left undisturbed because of the furrowing, that is known as the furrow slice. sorry, I'm really sorry. The furrow slice, it is basically these areas, right? So these slices which have been cut and which have been turned upside down, they are known as the furrow slices. And as far as the furrow wall is concerned, the side of the furrow, the soil on the side of the furrow which have been left undisturbed, that is known as furrow slice, right? Then we have crown. So these top portion of the furrows, they are known as the crown. Then we have dead furrow. Don't worry, I am going to discuss the back furrow also and the headland, but before that, just let me explain to you dead furrow. This part of the soil which is left which is between these two furrows, that is known as the dead furrow. Now there are two concepts, back furrow and headland. Let me explain that to you. See, while we are doing the plowing, we must be doing it using some tractor or something. If this is the field, and if the tractor is moving in this direction, right, so it must be creating furrows something like this, right? Now after reaching the end, the tractor, it will take a U-turn, right, and then again it will start furrowing, right? Now again this initial furrow, it will be overlapped, right, because see, because of this U-turn, this side a new furrow is being created, but here on this part, this initial furrow, it is being overlapped. Now this overlapping, it will create a ridge, a raised ridge, right? This raised ridge, that is known as the back furrow, right? So as you can see, the raised ridge is known as the back furrow, right? Then we have the headland. What is meant by the term headland and what is the concept of headland? Just let me explain it to you. See, again, if you are plowing in the field, if this is the field and we are using a tractor to plow the field, see, in the plowing what happens is, like behind the tractor, we fix an implement to do the plowing part. Here, if the tractor is moving in this direction, so after reaching this point, when it has to take a turn, it will not be able to turn itself with the implement being attached at its back, right? So here what the tractor essentially do is, the implement, it is like uplifted, and then the tractor, it takes a turn, and here after reaching at this point, the implement will be again placed down, and again the furrowing will start. Now this part of the land which cannot be plowed because of this taking a turn, that is known as the headland. All right, so I hope with this all these terms are clear to you. Now let's move ahead to the next question. The next question is about the cell organelles. See, the question asks that dash is a large and oval cell organelle which is responsible for controlling the activity of the cell as well as the cell division, right? So the correct answer here is option number C, nucleus. See, students, in the cell, the functions which a cell carry out, they are essentially based on the principle of division of labor. Now, what is division of labor? Essentially, each of the function which a cell has to perform, they are divided into different organelles. As a human body have different organs to perform different functions. Similarly, a cell also have different organelles to perform those functions, right? So the organelle which is responsible for the cell division, because it is the nucleus. If this is the cell, inside the cell there is a nucleus where we have the DNA, right? So during the cell division, the DNA, it passes to the genetic material, it passes from the mother cell to the daughter cells because of this nucleus, right? So that is the function of the nucleus. Okay, now let's move ahead to the next question. Okay, before moving to the next question, let me explain to you these other options. We have lysosomes. So what are lysosomes? Lysosomes, they are also known as the suicide bags of a cell. Why so? Because lysosomes, they have certain enzymes, right? Now what these enzymes essentially do, they carry out the digestive functions in the cell. Whatever toxic materials are there, they can digest it inside the cell. However, if there is a certain metabolic injury to the cell, and if the cell, it has get injured beyond the repair, this lysosome, it will burst, and these enzymes, they will spread to the entire cell, and the cell itself will get destructed, right? So therefore, they are known as the suicidal bags of the cell, because they have this self-destructive power, right? And then we have the mitochondria. Mitochondria is like a powerhouse of the soil. It produces the energy unit known as the ATP in the cell. ATP. right? Then we have Golgi apparatus. Golgi apparatus, the main function is just to store and package the lipids and proteins, right? Not much here in the Golgi apparatus. Okay, now let's move ahead to the next question. So the next question says, which of the following processes involve breaking the hard pan without inversion and with less disturbance of the topsoil? Okay, so the correct answer here is option number B, subsoiling. See students, what happens is after repeated cycles of cultivation, after repeated irrigation, after few years, if this is the soil, beneath the soil certain hard pans they start forming. Now the problem with these hard pans is that they stop the penetration of the roots, and they also stop the percolation of the water deep down inside the soil, right? So to make sure that these hard pans they have been removed, right, we undertake the process of subsoiling. In the subsoiling, what happens is we use a implement which does not disturb the topsoil, right? In the plowing we were disturbing the topsoil also, but in the subsoiling we don't disturb the topsoil. Okay, now again a question might arise, why are we not disturbing the topsoil, and why we don't want to disturb this topsoil? See, repeated tillage and repeated plowing, it is also have its own disadvantages, right? Everything has its own advantages and disadvantage. The disadvantage of repeated plowing, right, it is that it can dismantle the structure of the soil, right? The soil can become a sand, right? So to avoid that, we just focus on this part where the hard pan have been created. So we use an implement which looks something like this. Here you can see in this picture. So here the hard pan have been created, this dark brown color portion. So hard pan have been created here. Now we are using an implement like this. So this implement, it is not destructing anything on the topsoil. Simply it goes deep inside the soil, and using this blade, this hard pan will be broken down, so that whatever deep rooted crop which we are growing, the roots they can penetrate deep down, and also if there is excess water in the field, it can also percolate deep down inside the lower layers of the soil, right? So this is the main function of subsoiling. Now there are certain other terms also, as I have told you previously. Then tillage is something which is not limited just to the just to the plowing part. It do includes the mechanical manipulation, but this mechanical manipulation, it has a greater aim, it includes a greater number of activities, and the scope is also larger. So as you can see here in this picture, it tells you what amount of activities we take in the entire tillage. So the tillage, it can be preparatory and it can be after cultivation. So preparatory tillage is something which you do before the cultivation, and after cultivation, as the name itself suggests, it takes place when the soil, when the crop is there in the fields, right? When the crop is standing in the fields, then the tillage operations that we carry out, they are known as the after cultivation tillage. Okay. In the preparatory cultivation also, we have primary, secondary tillage, and the layout of seabed. In the preparatory tillage, there are again three steps. In the primary tillage, there are again three steps: deep tillage, subsoiling, and year-round tillage. Now, what is deep tillage? See students, sometimes again the soil becomes too much compacted, and we get clods like this, right? Clod formation happens. Now even just by looking at this picture, you can understand that it will be very difficult for the roots to penetrate in a soil which have clods like this, right? And the plant, it will be difficult for the plant to establish itself in a soil which have clods like this. So as to break these clods, we carry out the activity of deep plowing, right? Then we have subsoiling. I have already explained that to you. Then we have year-round tillage. Now year-round tillage, again as the name itself suggests, it is that tillage which keeps on happening for the entire year, right? Now for example, in certain dry land regions, what happens is that before harvesting before sowing the crops, you carry out the tillage operations to prepare the soil, right? Then when the crop have been harvested, right, when the land have been kept fallow, even at that time you carry out the operations to ensure that no weed growth happens in that time period, right? So such kind of operations, they are known as the year-round tillage, where the tillage, it is not limited only to the cultivation when the soil has been when the crop have been cultivated and before cultivation, but also the post harvesting tillage as well, right? So that is the year-round tillage. After that we have the secondary tillage. So once we are done with the primary tillage, we go on to do the secondary tillage. Secondary tillage includes very lighter or finer operations such as harrowing or planking, right? So that is the aim of secondary tillage. Okay, so let's move ahead to the next question. Just wait for a second. Okay, so the next question says that what is the objective of thinning and gap filling? The answer here is option number D, to maintain optimum plant population. Now let me explain you what is meant by the term thinning and gap filling. See students, as you can see here in this picture, there are in this area a lot of plants, they are growing very close to each other, and if in contrast to these areas, if we look at areas like this, there are hardly any plants. Now this is a problematic way of growing crops. Why? Because see, if the crops, they are growing close to each other, then there will be a lot of competition for the limited resources, right? Here these plants, they all are competing with each other for the limited resources, be it soil nutrition, be it sunlight, be it water. So these plants, they are facing a lot of competition, and in such a scenario, these plants, they will not be able to grow at their optimum or at their best level, right? So they will not be able to give the best yield. On the other hand, if we look at this area, here we have hardly planted anything. So it becomes but obvious that this area will not give us any yield whatsoever, right? So this is not a ideal way to grow the crops so as to ensure the optimum yield, right? Now if we want the best yield, we do the thinning and gap filling. In the thinning and gap filling, wherever the plants are growing too close to each other, wherever there is a lot of competition, we thin the plants. Thinning means we distribute them in a way that they get separated from each other. We create a space between these plants so as to ensure that they don't undergo a lot of competition, and adequate amount of nutrition, adequate amount of water and resources is available to each plant so that they can give their best and the optimum yield, right? And then gap filling happens when in areas where there are no plants, we plant or you can say we sow certain plants in those areas to ensure that our land, it is utilized in a proper way, and no amount of our land is wasted, right? So that is the technique of thinning and gap filling, right? Okay, now moving to the next question. It says that which of the following practices is followed in crops like sugarcane, papaya and banana to avoid lodging? So that is the correct answer here is option number C. Now, first of all, before explaining you the options of this question, let me explain to you what is meant by the term lodging. See students, sometimes like the plant, it becomes too heavy, right? When the plant, it reaches close to its maturity, it becomes too heavy for the stem to hold the plant at its proper position. Or sometimes because of high wind speed, the plant, its stems or its stems or its roots, they get displaced, right? Vertical displacement of the stem or the roots, that can happen, right? So that is known as the lodging. So here, as you can see in this picture, the plants, they have been displaced, vertically displaced, right? So this is known as lodging. Now to prevent the lodging, what we do is we carry out the practice of earthing up. Now what is earthing up? See, in earthing up, what we essentially do is, just imagine that this is the plant which we are having, right? So this is the plant, right? And this is the base. at the base we put up the earth like this, right? So we collect the earth and we put up at the base of the plant, as you can see in this picture, right? So the plants were growing here and we put up the earth around the plants just like that, so as to provide support to it. Now earthing up, it is done in different crops, and in each crop its purpose is also different. For example, in crops like banana, sugarcane, it is done to prevent the lodging. However, in crops like potato and cassava, it is done to provide a better soil volume to the tubers to grow. Cassava, potato, they are tuber crops, right? So the food, you can say, or the fruit, it is in the form of tubers, right? So to provide a good soil volume to these tubers to grow at their best capacity, we do the practice of earthing up, right? Now, apart from earthing up, there were certain other terms which we have mentioned here. It is topping and desuckering. I will explain topping and desuckering to you together. Why? Just have a look. See, while we all were growing up, there came a time like when we were of around 6 or 7 years of age, when we all suddenly start becoming thin, right? And whenever our relatives used to see us, they say, "अरे बच्चा बड़ा पतला हो गया है आपका, बड़ा बच्चा बड़ा कमजोर हो गया है आपका." ठीक है? इन इंडिया आप कमजोर नहीं हो सकते, चाहे आप अनहेल्दी होके बहुत बहुत मोटे मोटे होते चले जाएं, पर आप गोलू मोलू अच्छे लगते हैं, आपको कमजोर नहीं कोई देख सकता, चाहे वो अनहेल्दी क्यों ना हो. ठीक है? वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट बट अ रियलिटी. सो जब हम पतले हो जाते थे तो अक्सर रिलेटिव्स हमसे मम्मियों से पूछते थे कि अरे बच्चा बड़ा कमजोर हो गया आपका. तो मम्मियां एक बहुत ही स्टैंडर्ड आंसर दे देती थी कि आजकल ना लंबाई खींची हुई है इसने, ठीक है, आजकल लंबा हो रहा है तो इसलिए पतला हो गया है, ठीक है, या लंबी हो रही है इसलिए पतली हो गई है. तो ये क्या होता था कि जब हमारी वर्टिकल ग्रोथ होती थी तो कहीं ना कहीं हमारी हॉरिजॉन्टल ग्रोथ जो थी वो रुक जाया करती थी. ऐसा उनका लॉजिक था. ऐसा ही एक प्रैक्टिकल लॉजिक हमारे प्लांट्स में भी होता है. ठीक है? सो इन प्लांट्स व्हाट हैपेंस इज देयर आर सर्टेन ऑक्सिलरी बर्ड्स, राइट? सो इफ द प्लांट इज ग्रोइंग वर्टिकली, right, the nutrition of the plant, it can be diverted to only one side. So if the plant is growing vertically, but we as a farmer, if we want more of the vegetative growth, right, if we want the plant to grow more in the horizontal direction, then what we do, we will cut this auxiliary bud, right? So here the aim is to prevent the vertical growth of the plant, and this activity, it is known as topping. Okay, now the next that we have is desuckering. In desuckering, what happens is we eliminate these suckers, right? Why we eliminate these suckers is, see, suppose here I have taken the a tomato plant's picture. So in the tomato plant, if these suckers are also there along with the fruit, see, suckers are also a part of the plant only, so the plant, it will divert some part of its nutrition to the suckers also. But we as a farmer, we don't want these suckers, we want all the nutrition to be diverted only to the fruit of the crop, right? So here we will pluck these suckers so as to ensure that all the nutrition is diverted towards the fruit, and that practice is known as desuckering. All right. Now, apart from desuckering and topping, we have this fourth option, which is ruining. Now, in ruining, what happens is, suppose for every crop there are different varieties. Now, suppose if I am growing rice, so there are 3 varieties of rice, A, B and C. In my field, I want to grow only variety B. Now, it is possible that along with variety B, some seeds of variety A or some seeds of variety C also come. Now, the process of removing the plants of variety A and plant of variety C, so as to get the pure variety B, we carry out the practice of ruining, right? So this is the practice where we take away, or you can say we eliminate the varieties of the which we don't want, right? So that is the process of ruining. Now let's move ahead to the next question. So the next question says, which of the following is an agriculture management approach that aims to minimize the frequency or intensity? See, here the aim is to minimize the frequency or intensity of the tillage operations to promote certain economic and environment benefits. See students, what happens is when we keep on doing tillage repeatedly, right? So one it involves a lot of heavy machinery, right? So that heavy machinery, it will cost a lot of capital to the farmers, right? It is a capital intensive way of doing the agriculture. So economic cost will be there. Along with the economical cost, there is an environmental cost as well. When we do these tillage operations or plowing operations repeatedly, the soil structure also gets damaged, right? So to overcome these disadvantages of repeated tillage, there is one practice which is followed, which you have to tell here, where we try to minimize the frequency of these tillage operations. So the correct answer here is option number B, conservation tillage, right? Now, what is conservation tillage? See students, first of all, we have conventional tillage. In the conventional tillage, we do the operations as we have been doing it since ages, like the primary tillage, secondary tillage, then the third option where we lay the seed bed, right? So we keep on doing these things where we are doing the standard operations as they have been done, right? But to minimize the intensity of these operations, to minimize the number of these operations, we carry out conservation tillage. As the name itself suggests, we are trying to conserve the soil. Right now, how it is done? Because we try to minimize the frequency and intensity. Here, either we can combine two operations together, or we can eliminate some of the steps altogether. Right. So in that way, conservation tillage is carried out. Apart from these two options, the other one was summer tillage. So in summer tillage, what happens is, see, in certain dry land areas, because of the lack of irrigation, the land, it is left fallow in the summer regions, right? Because the water availability is not there, the irrigation facilities are not there. So in the summer time, the land is left fallow, right? So but even when the land is left fallow, we carry out the tillage operations. Why? Why we carry out tillage operations even when the land is left fallow? So one, to ensure that the no weed growth happens in that time period, and secondly, because when the land is left fallow, even at that time period, the land can become compact, right? So to break the compaction of the land and to make sure that the no weed growth happens in the summer fallow, we do the summer tillage, right? And then comes the winter tillage. In winter tillage, we gives better contact to the crop stubble with the soil, right? So as to give the better contact of the crop stubble with the soil, so as to make sure that whatever organic matter we have, it decomposes in a good enough manner. Because in winter the temperature is low, and in the low temperature the decomposition activity, it becomes slow. So in that scenario, to make sure that the organic matter, it decompose well in the winter fallow season, we carry out the winter tillage. All right. Let's move ahead to the next question. The next question says, in which of the following methods a new crop is planted in the residues of the previous crop without any previous soil tillage or seed bed preparation, right? So we are not doing any kind of tillage. Simply we harvested our first crop, and on the same land we have sown our second crop. What kind of tillage it is? So it is the correct answer here is zero tillage, right? See, all these activities, the minimum tillage, zero tillage, strip tillage, rotary tillage, they all are parts of conservation tillage, right? So here we try to conserve the economic and the environmental benefits. We try to minimize our economic and the environmental cost through all these methods. Now, what happens in all these different methods? First of all, we have minimum tillage. In minimum tillage, as the name itself suggests, we try to minimize the operations by combining certain operations together. Right? Suppose if we are carrying out this. Like if there is no if hard pans have not been formed, then there is no need to do the subsoiling part. So we can omit one step in this manner, right? If there are no clods formed in the soil, then we can omit the step of secondary tillage. So in that way, by omitting certain steps or by combining 2 or 3 steps together, we can minimize the number of tillage that we are doing. Then comes zero tillage. In the zero tillage, as the name itself suggests, we don't carry out any tillage activity. We leave the stubble as it is on the field itself, and then we carry out the sowing of the next activity. So that is the zero tillage, right? Then we have the strip tillage. See, as you can see in this picture, in the strip tillage, instead of tilling the entire field, we just carry out the tillage operations for certain specific strips, right, where we have to grow the crops, right? Because the crops, they will not be grown in the entire field. We have to grow them in a manner, right? We have to plant them in a manner, as I have told you previously, to ensure that there is there is even distribution of the plants as well, right? So as to avoid the competition. That part you remember. So for that we grow them in lines also, in strips only, right? So instead of doing the tillage operations on the entire field, in the strip tillage, we carry out the tillage only in these particular strips, right? So that is the strip tillage. In the rotary tillage, what we do is we employ a special tool to cut, break and mix the soil at the same time. So here we are basically combining the primary and the secondary tillage operations, right? So that is the function of the rotary tillage. All right. So here, as you can see in this picture, the farmer, what he is doing, that by using this implement, they are essentially doing the rotary tillage, right? So here the soil, it will be cut, and at the same time the mixing will also happen. So basically we are combining the two operations, right? So all these, they are the methods, you can say, or the different ways of carrying out the conservation tillage. All right. Now let's move ahead to the next question. It says that which of the following tillage is done after seeding or planting the crop, either at the pre-emergence stage of the crop plants or while they are in the early stages of growth, so that crop plants do not get damaged but extra plants and broad-leaved weeds are uprooted. So here there are three things which you have to keep in mind. First of all, we are doing this tillage operations when the plant, it has already been planted, right? So either it is at the early stage of the growth, or if the plant, it is at the early stage of its growth, or if we have sown the seed but it has not started growing as of yet, right? So in that case we carry out this kind of tillage. And second thing that you have to keep in mind is that we carry out this tillage in such a manner that the plant, it does not get damaged, but at the same time we ensure that any of the extra plant or any weeds are there, then that can be uprooted, right? That can be removed without damaging the plant, right? So that activity, it is known as blind tillage. All right, just give me a second. So that activity, it is essentially known as blind tillage. After blind tillage, I think I have by explaining the question itself, I have told you what blind tillage essentially is. So here, after the seeding or when the plant is in the early stages of its growth, we do the plowing part so as to remove the weeds without damaging the actual plant, right? Okay, now the next option that we had, it was of puddling. In puddling, what we do is we carry out the plowing activity in the standing water. See, essentially it is done for crops like rice, where there is standing water in the field, right? Here in this picture, the person, you can see, he is carrying out the practice of puddling. In the puddling, we do plowing repeatedly again and again until the soil, it becomes soft and muddy, right? And it is done especially for those crops where we require standing water in the field, right? So that is the activity of puddling. After puddling, we have combined tillage, right? So in combined tillage, what we essentially do is that we combine 2 or 3 implements together. Remember, implements. So here we are combining 2 to 3 implements together so as to minimize the number of steps that we have to carry out, right? See, for example, here you can see. So here, first of all, we have certain blades like this, so that they will do the plowing part or the primary tillage part. After that, here at the same time, we have certain you can say these reversed cup kind of structure, or these conical structures which can be used for at the same time to drop the seeds. So here the sowing and the tillage, these operations, they have been combined together, right? So we combine the implements, we bring together the different implements which are essentially used in different practices, or you can say different steps of the tillage, but here we are combining all these implements together so as to minimize the number of steps. All right. The last question for today's class is, propping is one of the important intercultivation practice followed in which of the following crops? Right, so propping, it is done for which of the following crops? The correct answer here is option number A, sugarcane. In the sugarcane, what essentially happens is, after growing, after the plant, it reaches a certain height, the plant becomes too heavy and it is prone to lodging, right? What is lodging? I have explained it to you earlier. So it becomes prone to lodging. Now to prevent that, what we do is we essentially take all the dry leaves, right, and we combine them together and we tie them together, right? So we tie all these leaves together, and this tying of leaves, this is known as propping, right? And it is done again for the plants which becomes heavy on their crown area, and when plants which are more susceptible to the lodging, right? So for those plants we carry out this propping. All right, so with this we are done with all the 10 questions for today's class. Now there are certain homework questions. Okay, so the first question is, who is known as the father of tillage? The options are Jethro Tull, Louis Pasteur, Yuan Long Ping, and A.C. Mann, right? So here you have to tell us the correct answer, and also I request you all to please search for the other options as well. In this series, every single option which we are taking, it is not a purposeless option. Very purposely, very intentionally we have put the other options. Apart from the correct option, all the other options which we have kept in the options of this series, they have been done purposely so as to cover as much or as many topics as we can through this series. All right, so the second question that we have is the homework question: which of the following operation is or are not performed in the sugarcane, right? So in the actual exam also you have to see very carefully and look out very carefully for terms like not or incorrect, right? Because sometimes in hurry we end up making these silly mistakes of not looking at not or incorrect, right? So please make sure that you are reading the question really well, and here you have to tell us that which of the following activities are not performed for the sugarcane, right? Okay, so these were the homework questions for you. Now, as promised to you, in every class we will be discussing the homework questions of the previous class also, right? So in the previous lecture there were 3 homework questions which I gave to you. The first one out of them was, where is the Indian Veterinary Research Institute is located? So it is located at Izat Nagar, Uttar Pradesh, right? So option B is the correct answer here. Okay, now let's move to the second question. It says that silver revolution is associated with which of the following crops? So the correct answer here is egg or the poultry production, right? So silver revolution, it is associated with the egg or the poultry production. Okay, now silver revolution, it is associated with the egg or the poultry production, but there is one more revolution, silver fiber. Now this silver fiber revolution is associated with the cotton, right? So since this exam is of Cotton Corporation of India, keep this point in mind. Okay, after that we have fertilizer production. For fertilizer production we had grey revolution. Okay, so these were certain revolutions, important ones, which you have to keep in mind. All right, and the last question that we had in last year's homework question was, ICAR, National Institute for Plant Biotechnology, is located at which of the following places? Okay, so the correct answer here is option number A, New Delhi. All right. So with this, we come to an end of our today's class, and this schedule, it was given to you when Ekta ma'am, she launched this series, right? So here, if we see, we have done the introduction to agriculture part, and in today's class we have covered the principles of agronomy part. Okay, so now I will meet to you on 21st of June on Friday at 2 p.m. and herein again we are going to discuss principles of agronomy in part 2 of in part 2, right? So before you come to this class, again I will request you that if you have made any short notes, right, and if you have any books of yours, because this exam is primarily for the students who are from agriculture background, if you have any of your short notes ready, just revise them once so that this section or this lecture, it can become more fruitful for you. All right, so with this we come to an end to our today's class. I hope you have enjoyed this and this session was fruitful for you. If there is any feedback, any doubt, you can write it down in the comment section below, or you can reach out to us at hello@edutap.co.in. Okay, so I'll meet to you on Friday. Bye, take care.